In part three, continue to talk about copyright as one of the types of intellectual property that media practitioners deal with on a daily basis. On the first part, we kind of talked about the nature of intellectual property, and in the second part, we talked about what can and can't be copyrighted in kind of general terms. In this part, we talk about infringement versus permissive use, which is basically the okay to use copyrighted material or not okay to use copyrighted material. And we also talk about use by exception. A great deal of this chapter deals with use of copyrighted material in digital spaces because that's where we spend most of our time these days. So under the Copyright Act, the defined rights that are associated with owning a copyright are control of reproduction of the work, preparation of derivative works, which we will talk about later, distribution of the work, where can the work be sent, and who may perform or display, or where work may be displayed. Basically, the rights that are associated with this intangible property are pretty much the same as they would be if it were our friend the baseball, but with a little bit of a twist because it is not material property. So why would anybody want to control intellectual property? Well, there are two basic categories. One would be artistic interest. This is my creative work, and I want it credited to me. I don't care whether I'm paid or not. The more compelling reason, of course, is financial interest. People are rewarded for products of their creativity, products of their mind, and any intrusion upon that should come either via permission or payment. But it doesn't have to be either one. It's completely arbitrary what a person does with his or her property. If we're sitting together in the grove and you say, "Can I have a bite of that sandwich?" Well, it's my sandwich, and I can say yes, or I can say no, and I don't have to have a reason. It's mine to do with as I wish. But mostly, of course, it is monetizing. It's why Buffalo Wild Wings, which is a sports bar and has multiple television screens, has to pay a different rate to its digital signal provider because it's commercially displaying the work that's being broadcast. Very different rate than you would play in your home. It's why the Ole Miss band has to pay royalties on music it performs. It's why a church, if its hymns or music portion of the service contains copyrighted material, has to have an ASCAP or a BMI license to perform those songs or to have those songs performed during a worship service. So mostly the idea behind asserting your rights associated with copyrighted material are to monetize your creativity. And the reason the internet is so dominant in this area, of course, is it just makes infringing a lot easier. Photocopiers first came along, people said, "Oh no, what if somebody makes a photocopy of a book or and sells it?" Well, that's a violation of copyright. Most ethical photocopy shop stores won't make copies of copyrighted materials unless you can demonstrate that you have permission to do that. That's the ethical places. The unethical places just don't even ask. But the internet really, and technology really, with cut and paste and drag and drop, make infringement vastly easier. The law hasn't changed at all, though. If it's the same as it has always been, and the fact that it's a lot easier to infringe on a copyright doesn't make it less wrong ethically or illegal as a violation of statutes. A little bit of history here, of course, is that in the early days of the internet, it didn't take long before people discovered point-to-point file sharing. Early on, people learned that this was a great thing. One person could buy a recording of a performance, a movie, a song, a record, whatever, and then upload it, or Napster would upload it to its site and then offer it free to anybody that wanted to download it. It pretty much was on the cusp in 1999 of destroying the industry, the music industry, because people were no longer buying music in music stores. They were just going and downloading it free on the internet. Uh, the recording industry reacted by seeking an injunction against Napster of giving away what the recording artists were selling, and they won an injunction. They were not a mere platform, it should be noted. They were actually providing this content. And also their business model was flawed because, once Freddie in Iowa had downloaded something from Napster, Freddie in Iowa could share it with Sue in New York, who could share it. It was just infinitely, it could go on. So people didn't have to actually go to the Napster site. They could just go to somebody else's site. And then if Napster had, a thousand songs that could be downloaded, then somebody else could download those thousand songs and create their own Napster clone site. So it was just kind of a mess out there, and but they were able to kind of get that shut down. Now, in 2021, there's still services and lots of software that still allow sharing of music and videos and much more without payment to the content creators. And traditional revenue streams are still threatened by bots. You can go to YouTube and pay nothing and see Taylor Swift video or an entire Disney movie in some cases. So this has been a matter of great concern because content creators, creatives, have always relied on revenue from concerts and from sales of recorded media for their income. And without that, then they were just kind of left penniless. But the question has to be asked, or was being asked, and is still being asked, well, who's at fault for this? I mean, is it the person who posts the copyrighted material? Are they the enabler? Is it those who download it illegally, who take it for free, even though they have no rights to do so? Or is it the platform? Well, there are two kinds of platforms. There's the passive platform and the active platform. And Napster was an active platform. They actually illegally uploaded content to their site to make it available, and that's how they were shut down. But then there are plenty of passive sites too that don't create any content, and YouTube or TikTok or any number of others would be classic examples of that. Well, our friend that we saw once before has a provision under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998, Section 230. It said that the platforms themselves were like kitchen tables, and they could not be held accountable for what other people put on the table. And this was in Section 230, which, if you remember, said that no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. If you take the time to look at the link that's on the previous slide, I think you would be entertained by it, and it probably does a little bit better explanation of the situation to the tune of YMCA than I have. But you can see kind of what the issues are for just everyday users. Pardon to call. Anyway, in light of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Um, the real culprit, the person who is taking the copyrighted material, is the person who uploads it. And the DMCA has provisions and a process by which the owners of the copyright may seek to enforce the site to take down uh, material that should not have been uploaded by a third party and was in fact uploaded illegally by a third party. Um, and most of these sites are ethical and they do try to comply, but some make it very difficult, and it is a cumbersome process for a little guy to enforce. There's a good link to an article by an attorney here on the details of submitting a takedown notice. So Frank sees his copyrighted material on some site and he knows that it's been put there without payment or permission. What can Frank do? Well, Frank can go through the process to send the platform a takedown notice, and the platform is supposed to react to that notice. But again, places can put in a lot of requirements. Some say that it has to be submitted by certified mail. Some say this, various requirements. It's just not easy to do that. Once somebody has taken somebody else's material and placed it on the internet, getting it removed is possible. It's just not easy. So what we've seen in this area is that there's really no clear-cut remedy. The big active traffickers have been prosecuted. Those who actually are not innocent under the DMCA because they actually do take the content themselves and upload it, so they are the culprits. But the things that are just platforms like YouTube and others, they have takedown provisions, and a lot of different models are in progress and process. There's iTunes, and then there's Spotify, or Pandora, where you can purchase a premium subscription and not have ads in it, and different types of ways to do things. Some even have revenue sharing agreements with the owners of the copyright. iTunes, YouTube does. And then the other thing to think about is that allowing infringement is sometimes an excellent marketing strategy, because as a content creator or a marketing person, the more your content that you actually own and have rights to keep somebody from using, the more it's used without payment or permission to you, the better for you, because the more widespread your message becomes. But what we have to do is really look at the specific sites, and this is the YouTube kind of help site that tells you about how you can submit a copyright infringement notification, and then what happens then. Of course, if you submit one, the other side can say, well, no, you don't, whatever, and it can get into a back and forth type of thing. But most of the time, what you'll see is that platforms do try to comply with intellectual property law, but they don't try really, really, really hard. And the other thing to point out, as I said earlier, there are two people who are documented to have been discovered and become rich and famous, and probably a lot more than that. Justin Bieber and Shawn Mendes, they recorded themselves doing covers of other people's music and uploaded them to YouTube or Vine, and then the result of that was that they got record contracts and become mega stars. And politicians and products, they want their digital ads, even though they're copyrighted, they want them shareable because it works. So you have this conflicted type of thing, and that some people don't. It's better for them not to try to monetize their creative content, and then some people do want to monetize their creative content. One of the better models that's out there is if you go to YouTube, you see, and they have an entire Taylor Swift video, or they have an entire Disney movie, or they have a lot of things that you think, well, somebody just uploaded this. Well, what they have done is devise, as a previous slide indicated, revenue sharing models, so that based on the number of times somebody watches that video or the number of times that movie is viewed, they can do the mathematics, and the advertising revenue that YouTube receives from other sources is actually shared with the copyright owner. Europe has taken a far more aggressive approach to this. The European Union has adopted what's now called Article 17, and it says that what initially sounds like something that's impossible. It says that larger platforms must provide assurance that they have the rights to the content that third parties upload to their sites. Now, let's be clear about this. If you take a video of your friend mud riding in her four-wheeler and you upload it to YouTube, you own the copyright to that video. You made that video. It's an original work of authorship reduced to a tangible medium of expression, and you have the rights to it. And so you can upload that. On the other hand, if your sister gives you a photograph that she took of somebody's wedding, and you post that photograph, then you have violated your sister's copyright. And what Article 17 says is that these platforms must figure out a way to know and to not allow in advance people that don't have rights to upload content to do it. It's going to be kind of weird to do it. Now, if you take that out of like a mud riding and my friend's wedding context and put it in a commercial context, it gets a little bit different. But what the European Union is trying to do is protect the little guy, protect the creative person whose material is being placed and spread without payment or permission. The link there has a really good explanation on it. It calls it Article 13, but the name has been changed to Article 17. It's a complex situation, but these companies, Google and others especially, are being put under a lot of pressure to come up with a way to ascertain that the people who upload content to their sites have the rights, have the intellectual property rights, the ownership interest in order to do that. And again, it's a question of kind of balancing the equities. And how is always going to be the technical challenge, the regulatory challenge here. In policy terms, the idea always is going to be to do like the Statute of Anne did back in 1710, and that's encourage creativity and encourage creative content and encourage people to come up with good ideas and to not let other people profit from their ideas once they're reduced to a tangible medium of expression. That's the 30,000 foot viewpoint on this, is that the law should promote creativity by little guys, by big guys, whether it's Disney Studios or Frank who plays the banjo. And Article 17 is an attempt to craft a remedy to that. Okay, we'll stop there and then we'll come back with part 4.